The next matter on the agenda is something that I'm looked forward to because it's an introduction to a colleague of mine on the California Newspaper Publishers Association board who I had a chance to meet a year ago. I'd heard his name many times, but I'd never had a chance to meet him. He is a lawyer with the Los Angeles Times, but was a litigator for Davis, Wright, and Tremaine for many years before that. But it's not that I'm impressed with. He is an individual who, as most of you know, we voted last week and over the last couple days to change the name of this organization from the California Newspaper Publishers Association to the California News Association. And with no disrespect for the attorneys who are in the room, I've always found attorneys to be very good in being able to forecast the future and look at the risks associated and how to protect their clients and or their companies from those risks. This individual was forward-thinking, looking at the opportunity that a name change afforded us, and recognized there were many of us, or some of us, 7 of us to be exact, who thought papers should stay. And he proffered that in a meeting and was extremely articulate, deliberative, as you expect a lawyer to be, and sober, but he made a very compelling, compassionate, and frankly, excellent argument. Not only that, I witnessed him as the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. And as all of you know, there has been a number of freedom of information issues that have percolated up through the legislature. He has been artful, working with staff to ensure that our interests, our rights, were protected, and he's done a phenomenal job. So it is my distinct privilege to introduce Mr. Jeff Glasser to the stage to pass out the Freedom of Information Awards. Give Jeff a big hand.
Good afternoon. I'm here today to present the 2017 CNPA Freedom of Information Award. This year we recognize 2 award winners who worked together to achieve a significant victory for public access to police records. The first recipient of the FOI award is a news editor who in 2013 began covering an incident where a minor was arrested and which ultimately led to criminal charges being filed against the arresting officer for excessive use of force. The charges were later dropped, but only after video footage of the incident was lodged as evidence in the criminal court case. Because the footage was pivotal to the resolution of the criminal case, the newsroom wanted to see it for good reason. There's a strong law recognizing that evidence that a court considers substantively is presumptively public record in California, but the county and the city refused to release the footage of the video, arguing that it was part of the officer's personnel file, which forced the dispute into court. Now, this newspaper only has a staff of 5, and so the editor of the North Coast Journal went and dedicated himself to fighting this battle without an attorney. And he spent 2 years devoting time and resources to legal arguments and court briefs and court hearings, informing the court of the overwhelming and overriding public interest in access to these court records. After 2 years, the newspaper won access to the arrest footage, and this year's FOI award goes to the editor whose deft ability to argue the case for access without the assistance of legal counsel is to be admired, as well as feared maybe by some of the lawyers in the room. Please join me in honoring Thad Greenson with the 2017 CNPA Freedom of Information Award. We have a second award. Our second winner may make the lawyers feel a little better. So once Thad prevailed in the trial court, and the case went up to the Court of Appeal because the public agency appealed the case. And when you get up into the Court of Appeal and you're facing the daunting prospect of a published decision and 3 justices, it's time probably to go get a lawyer. And the North Coast Journal was able to find our next FOI winner, who courageously agreed to take the case on as a contingency case. This FOI recipient has represented newspapers across the state in access battles for many, many years. He, in this case and in other cases, has done it on a pro bono or contingency basis, which our nominating publisher recognized is a very risky practice. You can go for years at a time without getting paid, and it can be wallet numbing. He has represented and received glowing commendations from journalists and news organizations across the state, including the Davis Vanguard, the Lake County News, the Ferndale Enterprise, the Woodland Record, and the Sacramento Valley Mirror. His many contributions to Californians' right of access include litigating and prevailing in several reverse Public Records Act cases, which are some of the most risky cases in California because they proceed without legislative guidance, and at the end of the day, it's unclear whether you can recover your fees even if you've compelled disclosure of the records. The FOI award goes to Paul Boylan for his representation of the North Coast Journal and for preserving the trial court victory by Thad.
Thank you so much. I'm just tremendously honored to be here today, and even more so to be sharing this with Paul, without his just really generous advocacy on our behalf. We wouldn't have gotten this far and would have risked setting a statewide precedent in the wrong direction. So I can't thank Paul enough. Quickly, I just want to thank the entire North Coast Journal staff, from our distributor drivers to all the way up to our publisher, and especially our newsroom, who just worked tirelessly. And for every moment that I was running off to court or doing something extra on this case, there was somebody standing behind me picking up the slack. So I'm just really, really grateful to them. And yes, I'd just like to close saying that my mom always had a favorite song lyric that from Leonard Cohen, that is, there's cracks in everything, that's how the light gets in. And I think we as journalists really embody that. It's, we look for those cracks. We believe in sunlight. We try to pull those cracks open and let the light into darkness. And I just want to close with saying to you publishers, this might be the last time I get a captive audience of publishers, do what you can to protect those newsrooms. Give them the space to operate, give them the resources they need, because really your communities and I think our democracy really depends on it. So thank you.
Before I give the usual thanks, I want to give a little bit of explanation of what really happened here in this case. As you all know, police forces around the country have been pressured by the advent of the cell phone to have body cams to record what's happening. It's happening in San Francisco, Los Angeles, all up and down the state, all around the country. They don't want to release any of this information. They don't. And so the way they tried to get around it was by arguing the reason they were putting these in place was for personnel reasons, to evaluate their officers. And therefore, they're personnel documents and privileged. They are private. That's what the city attorney tried to do for this video showing a kid being beaten up by a cop. They used that argument, and it was that argument that Thad was able to defeat on his own. Now, my very first thanks is that he didn't go to law school. And I'm not kidding. I do a lot of appellate work. I'm very, very grateful and very happy with that. When I get records, I look through it to find out whether or not it can support an appeal, whether or not it can be there. And it's not easy, because when you don't have attorneys who are involved in a case, they don't understand the rules of evidence. They don't understand the limits of what an appellate court can do. And when Thad sent me his, it was pristine. It was beautiful. It had all the declarations, it had all the evidence, and I said to myself, this is something I can get behind and I can fight for. I first would like to thank my wife. There's a lot of work that I do. Lori Joseph, she's a deputy legislative counsel, where, by the way, the Chief Justice did intern at the Legislative Counsel's office, I'm told. I do a lot of this work, and there's not a lot of payment involved oftentimes, and so having a wife who's also an attorney who understands the issues and is patient with her husband and understanding about his obsessions with these issues is very helpful. I would like to thank, of course, the California Newspaper Publishers Association for recognizing this good work, especially recognizing the good work of the North Coast Journal. There are newspapers up and down the state that do incredibly good investigative journalism using the Public Records Act, and it's CNPA's recognition of them that gives them the encouragement that they need, because they don't get that much locally. Oftentimes, like my good friend Tim Cruz with the Sacramento Valley Mirror, who had a noose delivered to his door a couple of weeks ago, they're quite hated within their communities by many members. So your support is essential to their ability to continue doing good work. I would also lastly like to thank all those attorneys out there that are very helpful to me, that are much better attorneys than I am. Rochelle Wilcox, there's Duffy Kelleran, there's James Chadwick, there are so many. Carl Olson, who's doing an amicus brief on an appeal that I'm dealing with right now. I feel that these people are giants, and they just let me walk with them, and I'm very, very grateful that I can. Thank you all very much. This is a great honor. Thank you.